Hey folks, welcome back to the dev stream. My name is Nick Taylor. I'm a lead software engineer here at Forum. Forum is the software that powers dev.
And I'm Christina Gorton. I am the open source community manager here at Forum. And today we have Jason Lengstorf with us. Jason, will you talk about yourself a little? Tell everyone who you are.
Sure. My name's Jason. I am the VP of Developer Experience at Netlify. So I work on, collaborating with product and marketing and the community and engineering to make sure that we're building the best possible product. It also means that I do a lot of tutorials, educational stuff, which trickles over into a live stream that I run. I run a show called Learn with Jason over on my Twitch channel, which we'll drop a link to it.
Yep.
But that happens on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So if you think that I seem like fun, come hang out tomorrow. And on top of that, I run a website called jason.af where I write about things. I also have all sorts of, I don't know, I'm all over the place. But yeah, learn to jason.dev, jason.af. There's links to everything else.
Cool.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for coming on the stream. It sounds like you're pretty busy. And definitely check out his stream. It's really great. I check it out when I can.
Mm-hmm.
So today we're going to talk about some Jamstack, what that is. Some folks might be new to this, so we're going to kind of go through what that is. And then we're going to talk a bit about serverless. And after that, I think we'll have a little fun. Maybe do some pairing. Maybe make some magic with the dev.to API.
Woohoo.
Absolutely.
And as we're going, if you don't know what we're talking about, you have questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. I will probably be asking questions. As I told them before the stream, I haven't done too much with like serverless, so I'll probably have questions as well as we're going along. And yeah, let's go ahead, Nick. So first, we kind of wanted to just talk about Jamstack in general, right? Is that what we were going with? Yep. So Jason, just kind of tell us, what's your definition of the Jamstack? What is the Jamstack?
So the Jamstack is it's a software architecture, and the general idea behind it is that you are focusing on decoupling your UI from other parts of the stack. So it has no opinions about how you do the backend. You can build custom microservices, you can use PHP, Java, Node, whatever you want. But the front end and the back end are decoupled. The front end should be compiled as much as possible, so you pull in data ahead of time and try to render it down so that things that don't change very often don't cost you a bunch of data and bandwidth. And then you serve it on CDN or on some kind of static hosting, because once you've compiled an asset, it doesn't need to be server rendered anymore. And those three pillars lead to front ends that tend to be much faster. They're less prone to breaking because they're pre-compiled. You don't have a server running in production anymore, which means that if you get tons and tons of traffic, you are not dealing with like, oh no, my server's overloaded and now I'm getting 500 errors, or we've hit the front page of Reddit and now nobody can get to our site because it's like you get like DDoS and things like that. There's also lower security risk because if you're pre-compiling, then your servers are only being talked to during the build step, not during the publishing step. So it's not actually possible to reach a server from a compiled site unless you do client-side calls. And then when you need anything dynamic, you can do those client-side calls, or you can use serverless functions, which all helps you just kind of eliminate a lot of overhead, eliminate a lot of ops, and just de-risk deployment in general, which lets you deploy very, very quickly, which is in my opinion, the biggest benefit, right? Like when you're running a Jamstack architecture, teams are deploying multiple times a day as opposed to like once or twice a week.
Yeah.
Cool. And like you said, you want to pre-compile as many assets as possible because excuse me, you don't want to be, like you said, hitting your actual server. And by pre-compiling those assets as well, like they all get pushed out to a CDN or some kind of edge cache, and that's where like things get bombarded if they do, and there's things in place there if somebody is actually hitting the CDN, I guess, too hard or something, they'll get throttled or something.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at like of all the components that are going to be fragile in a deployment, if somebody starts throwing thousands and thousands of simultaneous hits at your website, so whether that's through a good thing, like you suddenly got very popular, you went viral, or whether it's through a bad thing like a coordinated attack, like somebody is trying to take your website down.
Yeah.
The most well-equipped piece of infrastructure to handle that is a CDN. So if your website is run from a CDN, it's still possible to DDoS a CDN, but it takes so much more than taking down a server.
Yeah.
So it just kind of it makes you feel a little bit easier. Like a really good example of this is Aaron Kassane launched something called the COVID-19 tracking project when it became clear that we didn't have good stats around COVID case numbers.
Yeah.
And when they deployed that site, they built it as a Jamstack site. They deployed it to Netlify, and their API, which was run as serverless functions, went from 0 to over 2 million hits overnight.
Wow.
And they didn't even notice because they, when you use that CDN style of deployment, it's built to auto scale and it's built to handle that massive amount of traffic. So the only reason they knew that they got that much traffic was because they checked analytics.
Okay. That's pretty wild though. And thank you for that resource, Aaron. No, that's pretty incredible. Question I had about Jamstack is I don't think this is specific to the Jamstack, but correct me if I'm wrong. Like immutable deploys, that's more just something that Netlify provides. It's not directly tied to Jamstack, or is it?
So there's two pieces, right? So we talk about atomic and immutable. And so when you think of immutability, a lot of times you think about it with data. And immutability is a computer sciencey term, but it basically means that like once something is created, it doesn't change. And when you look at the way a server rendered website runs, there's this variability. If a server is too busy, one person will hit the page and they'll get the page. Another person will hit that exact same URL and they'll get an error message. Or if one of the servers that you hit is down, then you get a partially broken page versus a fully working page or a fully down page. And so there's this sudden set of unpredictability. Your site will be different depending on who loads it at what time. And that means that it's now harder to think about. Like if somebody gives you an error, you can't just say, oh, let me go like redeploy because we shipped a broken page. You don't have to say, okay, well, what does it look like? Can you send me a screenshot? What does the error message say? Can you see anything in your network tab about like which request failed? And like that'll still happen.
Flashbacks in our repo here.
Yeah, right. And like that'll still happen with client-side calls, but where it gets really tricky is when you don't have client-side calls and you're doing it on the server. Now you don't have network requests. Now you have to get into your logging. And if you haven't set up good logs, if you don't have good error management, if you're not using a tool like Sentry, or you don't have something like Datadog that's tracking this stuff, how do you figure it out? So you now, instead of being able to just say, I built this page and an HTML page with content on it is going to look the same no matter where you load it. Like maybe your styles are going to be messed up. Maybe you've got some client-side JavaScript, but that's a separate issue. Like your front end code is front end code, but like if your back end code is unpredictable, that gets really, really hard to debug until you add a bunch of tools around explicitly debugging server-side code. So the goal with immutable deploys is that if it builds and the content is right, when you look at that deploy, it will always be right. You're always going to serve the same file to somebody. So it might render incorrectly because they're in a different browser that you didn't test for, but the content will be correct. And that's what makes it immutable. The other side of that is and this is the part that Netlify does, which is the atomic deploys, where when you deploy a site, Netlify won't deploy until the whole thing completes. And that means that each deploy is a unique unit in time. And because it's compiled, what you're doing is you're compiling down all of the source code into a deliverable asset. So it's a folder. And what's magical about this is it means that when you put that site up on the internet, you don't have to get rid of the old versions of the site. Each build is its own atomic unit. So if you want to travel through time, you can say, well, let me roll out the last deploy, or let me go look at what this site looked like in April of last year, and let's do a quick comparison. So you can really start to get a lot of benefits here. And now that's not like a thing that Netlify does magically. It's just a thing that Netlify supports as part of its offering, is that we keep around those previous deploys so you can quickly roll back. It's a one-click action to take any given deploy live. But yeah, so that's those are two of the big benefits that you'll hear about with the Jamstack, and why specifically they're helpful.
Yeah, I've definitely leveraged that before. I host my blog on Netlify. I was on Gatsby previously, but I'm just like messing around with tech stacks like every dev who rebuilds their blog like one too many times. But
Always.
yeah, there's been a couple times like because I was learning 11t and I broke like a short code or something and I didn't test it and I deployed it. Something was broken, obviously, so then I just went back to the previous deploy like instantly, and it was pretty awesome. Um, but yeah, you were talking like in terms of the back end, in terms of knowing what's going on. So that's like a whole other topic, but like just observability in general. Like yeah, I know at Forum we use Datadog, I'm pretty sure, and I forget what else we use, but we have Honey Badger, I think, that does client side and all that. But yeah, no,
Mhm.
cool. Uh, is that kind of observability also available on Netlify, or do you typically rely on third party or?
So we've got function logs, we've got build logs for your front end observability, like if you, whatever you're shipping to production. We don't
Okay.
build anything in for that. So, but we do have a good partnership with Sentry. We've got a good partnership with other companies like Applitools, which can run kind of smoke tests in production. And for like running visual diffs and things like that. So there's a lot of plugins around the Netlify ecosystem.
Yeah.
Something that we are introducing that I'm pretty excited about is log drains for enterprise customers who are more kind of, you need to have this like very clear log of what's going on in your system so that you can analyze and figure things out. We have log drains that integrate with Datadog, which is a pretty popular platform for keeping track of that stuff. So
Okay. Cool.
yeah, if you do have like those enterprise needs, we have ways to solve that. We don't build it in house because there's so many excellent companies that are dedicated to this. So we
Yeah.
just kind of try to plug into what you already use.
Yeah. No, I think that makes complete sense. Do what you do best and let the other people that are doing their stuff best do it. Cool. About the Jamstack, like I think like when I start because I started messing around with it in about 2017. I think this is when maybe Gatsby came out, or maybe Gatsby was a little earlier, 2016. But I think when I first started working it, I initially thought of static sites as really just being more like blogs and stuff, but that's not really the case, right? Like there's like e-commerce application. It's really not just some dev blog on it. That's the Jamstack, right? Like there's many things.
Yeah, I mean you can build so much stuff. There's like, well, here's a great example. Twilio just rolled out a beta version of their console, which is like Twilio, if you're not familiar, is a company that does everything from SMS to video chat to like two-factor authentication. They do everything, right?
Yeah.
Um, their console is a really heavy app where you're configuring that stuff. You are managing all the different services and buying phone numbers. And this is highly dynamic, highly personal stuff. It's all behind authentication. They just
Okay.
shipped the beta of their console on Netlify. So it's, you can build incredibly complex things. If you've used the Netlify app before, app.netlify.com, that's a Jamstack site. It shipped on Netlify.
Okay.
Um, you can run, like I have some examples that you can find that are about building your own subscription site using Stripe and different authentication solutions, like Netlify Identity is one of them, where you can have somebody go and purchase a subscription, and then you can use serverless functions to validate whether the subscription is active, and then
Okay.
give them access or deny them access to protected version places on your Jamstack site. So you can do some really powerful stuff here, and really get a lot of like really anything you can imagine, right? Like the places where you'll probably still need to build a backend server
Yeah.
is if you're going to get into WebSockets, if you want to get into like real-time notifications, GraphQL subscriptions, things like that. You don't do that on serverless. You need a server running all the time. But what I've done in the past is I'll go to like I'll get, a droplet on DigitalOcean set up to run my little GraphQL server that does subscriptions, and then I'd build a Jamstack site to talk to it, because there, again, one of the tenets is it's decoupled, so you can
Yeah.
get your data from anywhere, even a service that you built yourself. The difference is that instead of mashing all that code into one ball that has to get deployed together, You've separated it out. You've got a front end here and you've got a back end over here, and you can deploy them independently.
Nice. And as far as the Jamstack, I think anyways in front end, if we're thinking of the front end, people have opinions on all kinds of things. But for those people who haven't really used the Jamstack, can you just kind of name a few things people could use as a front end if they were doing the Jamstack, and then maybe as the back end if they were working with it? I know there's all kinds.
Yeah, sorry, can you say that again?
Yes.
I'm not sure I
So if
understood the
someone's
question.
building out a Jamstack site, what technologies can they use for, like, say, the front end? So the front end side, if we're talking about this being decoupled, so what can they use as the front end?
I mean, really anything you want, right? You can build it in plain HTML. You can use a framework that generates plain HTML like 11D. You can build it with a JavaScript framework like Vue or React or Angular. We've got like Svelte has some good examples. You can use the meta frameworks like Gatsby, Next, Nuxt, VuePress. All of those, I think all of those work on Netlify, just kind of out of the box. You can make just about anything work. There's a handful of things where you have to do some fiddling to get it to do a fully Jamstack compliant kind of output. But in general, you're kind of free. Like, this is one of the things that I like about the Jamstack approach, is that it's not opinionated about how you build. It's opinionated about how you organize. So if you set up your code in a way that is decoupled and compiled, it doesn't matter what the tool is. You can use a PHP static site generator, and as long as the compiled assets can run on a CDN, doesn't matter. Go nuts. People use Jekyll and Hugo, and those are backend built languages. They're powered by Ruby. They're powered by Go. Those are all really good targets for Jamstack sites.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I know like Next.js works on there too, and I was reading about this. I think Cassidy Williams, your coworker, put a blog. It was either on her blog or the Netlify blog, but there's a plugin now for Next.js, so you can actually use Netlify functions within a Next.js app.
Yeah. So the way that Next works now is, so Next has like my favorite way to use Next is Next supports a command called export, where it will just build you a Jamstack site. And in the vast majority of cases, it's going to be so much easier for what you're trying to do. When you have dynamic use cases, if you can't make it work with just static, then a Next site that uses the Essential Next.js plugin, which is actually auto installed now for new sites, will take any of the server dependent stuff. So get server props, or get static props with a fallback, or if you're using Next image, any of the things that would require you to deploy a server, those now run in serverless functions. And we just launched a new kind of beta technology that we're really excited about. I shouldn't say new. We learned what we liked about previous iterations of technology. Like, when you take a WordPress site and you put it on a PHP hosting kind of platform, and then you put Varnish in front of it so that when you load the PHP page once, then Varnish keeps a copy of that page, and subsequent requests get the cached version, so it's really, really fast. We took all the things that we liked about that, and then we tried to get rid of the cumbersome setup and the pitfalls of management and cache invalidation, and we packaged that up into something that we are calling distributed persistent rendering, with the idea being that we put that functionality into a serverless function, and then after it executes, we'll keep the result of that serverless function available in our cache until the next deploy. And so you basically get the ability to say, I don't need to render this page right now because it's in our archive. We have hundreds of thousands of old news articles. They barely get any traffic, but we don't want to lose them. We want to keep that content around. So the first time somebody requests it, it goes through a serverless function to render that page, but then it goes into the cache. And if anybody else requests it, they get it instantly because it's from the cache. It takes, 40 milliseconds instead of however long. So it's very similar to what you would get by setting up Varnish in front of any Nginx server or whatever. But we tried to make the setup completely transparent. You just have to wrap your serverless function in a handler called builder. And the invalidation, you don't have this complicated, like, okay, how do we send proper invalidations? How do we make sure that the cached version here is in sync with the static cache, is in sync with the asset cache? And like these things, I don't know if you've worked on a team that had complex caching, but
We
like
do. We have.
I've definitely lost huge amounts of time to, I invalidated the asset cache, but then this API cache was not there, and so it pulled an old version of an asset, which then got out of sync with the current version of the asset, and now the site's broken, and we have to go clear all the caches again, and the site was
Yeah.
down for an hour because we couldn't get things lined up, right? So we just removed that whole part. We put some restrictions in intentionally so that you get really, really good defaults. Your cache is going to work.
Okay.
You get that benefit of dynamism, but you don't get the drawbacks of having things kind of rendered in odd ways where things can get inconsistent again, right? We want to keep those Jamstack guarantees. Things stay
Okay.
immutable and predictable.
Cool. I have a small side note which is related to caching, but we had a major caching issue on dev.to.
Yeah.
It's either I can't remember which April Fools it was. It was either I think it was 2 years ago. So the joke was just to be literally, the idea was, let's change the font of the website to Comic Sans MS. And so we did that, and I can't remember what caused it, but it caused the entire cache to invalidate. And for folks that don't know, we use heavily edge caching at dev and forum instances. So the site was down for like I don't know if you can pull up the blog post. It's on dev, Christina, from Ben,
Yeah,
but
I'll try to
it
find
was
it.
like
Yeah.
hours and hours, and like the retro's like, yeah, next time don't switch the font to Comic Sans MS. So it's like,
So the thing that's really funny about this, right, is like it's like you try to do it for a joke, and then the retro is like, it turns out the joke was me. I'm the joke.
yeah. Anyways, that is just a funny little anecdote. But what you were just explaining there about all these good defaults and the caching in place, uh, maybe I'm not right here, but is this some kind of incremental build strategy that this provides you with?
Yeah, so the idea is that what you're doing is you're so to put it in a concrete example, right? Let's say that you've
Yeah.
got 1,000 pages and you want to build the 20% of pages that get 80% of your traffic at build time so that your build only takes you 10 seconds.
Yeah.
So you would give a list of pages to your build system and say, these are the 200 pages that I want to build right now.
Okay.
And you feed those in, it builds those pages and you get a compiled version. And then you have the other 800 pages set up as a kind of a wildcard route. So it could be like /blog/star and then
Okay.
redirect it to your builder function. And so when somebody hits /blog/old post, then it hits the on-demand builder, which will look it up in the database, build that page, and then
Okay.
output it. But then the next person who hits it will hit it as though it was like page number 201
Okay.
in that initial list. So the idea is that the mental model is exactly the same. It's always going to be the static site building a
Mm-hmm.
page, and whether you're doing it in a serverless function or whether you're doing it as part of your build step, we want it to feel the same. It's going to be your static site generator, render page, and a slug.
Okay.
What changes is that now you don't have to do all of that ahead of time, and you don't have to get clever about it. And I think that this
Okay.
is, I have a very early philosophy building around this idea of, in general, I don't think anybody will disagree with this. Devs have a tendency to really like building clever solutions. It's super fun to come up with a
Yeah.
complicated workaround to a complicated problem.
Yeah.
The problem is that every clever solution becomes a maintenance debt, and if the person who built the clever solution leaves, it
Mhm.
becomes legacy code, and now nobody knows how to maintain it or how to change it, and so eventually it becomes part of the next rebuild.
Yeah.
So what I'm starting to advocate for is this idea of subtraction. So instead of adding a tool, instead of adding a layer to try to decrease the complexity of something, what
Yeah.
can we remove? And
Mhm.
and I'm really starting to lean into this idea of well, instead of figuring out how we add servers and add caching layers and add cleverness, what if we just removed some of the pages that we build,
Yeah,
and then we use these patterns that we already have? We've got serverless functions. We've got the ability to render pages. We've got the ability to put things into a cache. Let's just do those things that we already know, that we already have good strategies for, that we've already got good defaults, that we know don't trip people up, that we know don't lead to weird caching states, so
yeah.
that our builds are predictable and our sites are kind of safe.
Cool, cool. And we're gonna talk about serverless in a bit, but this sounds like if you talk about, I know serverless is a funny term because there is a server, but like when like pre-serverless, where you have a, let's say like a WordPress site, like there's all kinds of
Mhm.
caching plugins with WordPress, but like first time you'll hit MySQL, it'll build the page and then it'll get cached. So it's kind of the same idea, but I guess the advantage here too is you don't have a server running 24/7. It's like
Right.
I need it now. Okay, that was like half a second worth of billing time or something like that. So
Yeah. And the way that that functions work now is like you get charged by the invocation. So if you're caching your function invocations, you actually don't get charged if somebody hits it again. So if you go to like slash page one, like I actually use this on the Learn with Jason API. If you go to learn with Jason
okay,
.dev slash API slash episodes, you're gonna get a list of all the episodes on Learn with Jason.
okay,
Um, when you make that request the first time, it'll hit the database and it makes a request to, I use Sanity as my backend. So it'll
okay,
hit Sanity and then it'll pull that data forward. If you refresh the page though, it's going to come back instantly because it's now using a builder function and or an on-demand builder. So you'll see that like, and I only get charged for one function call because now it's in the cache. It's no longer using a serverless function. It's using our edge cache.
okay.
So this might be completely off topic, and I could be completely wrong here, but since we work with Vaidehi, Joshi, and this is something she brings up a lot of, just like power usage and stuff. If you're not having to ping a server 24/7, is this like something that can also help, just kind of like in saving a little bit of power usage just for us as humanity? Like if we're
Yeah.
not
Yeah,
all,
yeah,
I mean, if you're just thinking about it that way. Sorry, Vaidehi's on my brain here because she brings this up in our Slack group all the time.
yeah, yeah.
Honestly, this is, it's something that it wasn't a like top of mind concern for me when I joined Netlify. Like I'd love to say that
Mhm.
I, made choices for the good of humanity. Unfortunately, I'm not that I like to be a good person, but I'm not that good of a person. And so I joined Netlify and then realized that one of the side effects of the Jamstack is that we're running fewer servers and we're
Yeah.
doing less work. If you build all of your pages once and then put them on a
Mhm.
CDN versus every time somebody makes a request or every fifth time somebody makes a request, having to render that page fresh, you are consuming less overall electricity. We've also got some initiatives going on in Netlify with Marissa Morby is our head of UX research,
Okay,
and she is actively working on more and more sustainability initiatives, making sure that Netlify is using green energy, making sure that we're kind of taking care of the planet a little bit as well. So it's
Yeah.
definitely top of mind and something that we I think about it a lot more now than I did when I joined, but I'm very
Yeah.
happy to see that those things are in motion.
Yeah.
cool, cool.
Definitely.
Yeah, I dropped a link to a dev article from Vida. It's from her talk. I think she gave it at CodeLand, or I can't remember where she gave it. But
I
yeah,
think she says in the article, but yeah.
okay, cool. Now you were talking about Sanity. That's what you use for your own site there. So Sanity is a headless CMS. I don't know if we don't have to go deep into headless CMSs, but it's it's one of the tools in your tool belt for Jamstack, right?
Yeah, I mean it's kind of a tool in the tool belt for whatever, but it's really a nice complement to a Jamstack front end. What I like about this approach is that we saw a move a little while back with companies like Stripe, where there was this obvious push to make data available via API. And I think that what we saw before that is that APIs were kind of an afterthought. Like the data was handled through a kind of monolithic layer where you would have data access and then this business logic, and then that would get kind of inserted into templates.
Okay.
And the business logic kind of snaked through the whole app. It was a really leaky abstraction. Um, And as a result, when you wanted to get at the data, you had to like scrape a front end to get the data.
Mm-hmm.
But we saw companies like Stripe say, well, what if we flip that around? What if we change the way that this worked? And we said, I'm going to give you the data, and then you can build whatever you want with it on the front end. And you get this really clear decoupling. There's data, and then there's a front end, and never the twain shall meet. You can do business logic in your front end to like further massage that data, but you know for sure that the data itself is predictably coming from this REST endpoint. And we saw CMSs start to pick this up. And WordPress, surprisingly enough, was actually one of the first ones to get this as a community plugin. They got a WordPress API as a plugin, which dug into the database and exposed endpoints so that you could pull your WordPress data. But then we also saw a whole bunch of headless CMSs that are purpose built for this. So Contentful is, they don't have a way to build a front end. You have to use a front end with Contentful. Sanity is the same way. Prismic, Storyblock, Graph CMS, all these, there's a ton of these companies out there. Each one has its own specialty, but all of them have this one thing in common, which is what they provide to you is an API. And then you consume data through that API and do whatever you want with it. It leads to some really cool things. Like people use it, you can use the same CMS now to power your mobile app, your marketing site, your core app, a whole suite of properties, as opposed to needing like one monolith per web property or per app, which leads for, it's easier to reuse content. If you write a blog on your CMS, you can publish it on the main marketing site, but now you can also surface it as an inline ad in your mobile app. That's like, hey, we just wrote about this new thing that you might be interested in. Do you want to read the blog? You don't have to now do that manually, which you would have had to do before. There's a lot of power and a lot of flexibility in this kind of move toward API first design for backend services. And I'm also seeing a lot of companies adopt that internally as well. Microservices are kind of a move toward that. You have a microservice that exposes an API surface that creates a nice clean boundary between your service and other services. It can go horribly wrong. Like, don't get me wrong, you can make a big old mess out of microservices, but done well, it's such a nice pattern to use.
Yeah.
Cool. And in terms of microservice, that's you can use serverless with microservice, because like the microservices I've seen, like I worked at this AI startup and we had Kubernetes, and so we had all these different pods with all different kinds of services. But can you still do microservice architecture with just serverless, or is that not really a fit? Or
I mean, you can. There are ways to like. It depends on what you're trying to build, right? So if what you're trying to build is direct access to a database and you just need an authentication layer and a kind of abstraction over like what the database location is so that somebody can't hammer your database endpoint, then serverless is great for that. It's a great way to create a REST endpoint or a GraphQL API that provides access to a database. Would I use it to try to build like anything super advanced, like anything that needed to have WebSockets or persistent connections or things like that? Probably not yet. Like I think that day is coming. But I really, really like it as a way for front-end developers to get themselves unblocked. Because what I like about serverless, and we'll when we actually start like building something, we'll see this. But what I feel like is the major power up for front-end developers when they start using serverless is that you don't have to learn the boilerplate or the deployment patterns or all of these other things that just add layers of context and complexity to getting something live. You write a function, and that function is just some business logic. And that business logic is really similar to the kind of stuff you would write on the front end. You just have access to some things that you wouldn't on the front end. Like you can use secret tokens because they're protected. You can use like privileged access to things that you wouldn't be able to do on the front end because that would expose those credentials to somebody who could do something bad with them. And other things, just a few other things like that really let you kind of, you can go so much further. You can really start to feel like a full stack developer without having to build that like ops and kind of like foundational boilerplate knowledge of how to stand up a server. You can just write what the route should do, not what the whole server should do.
Okay, yeah. I think that's a nice segue to start talking about serverless.
For sure.
I don't know. I feel like Scott Tolinsky on Syntax FM when he's like does those advertisement transitions. But anyways, yeah. So let's talk serverless. I mean, we've kind of touched on it a bit with when we were explaining the Jamstack. So what is serverless exactly? For some folks are in the crowd are new to these things, so it'd be kind of good to give the TLDR.
So the origin of serverless is that big cloud providers like AWS have tons and tons of servers sitting in warehouses, and a lot of the space on them goes unused. And they had this idea that if they let people use some of that extra capacity as needed, like as serverless functions, then they'd be able to at least recoup some of the overhead of running those servers without actual server capacity on them.
Okay.
Yeah.
The way that works is that they set up a server for us, and then we can drop functions into that server. So for us, it's serverless. For the cloud provider or the serverless platform, they are managing the server. So it's very much like going on the cloud. The cloud is just somebody else's computer. Serverless is just somebody else's server. But the nice thing about it is that, you know, when you go to the cloud, you don't have to go restart the machine when something goes wrong. They've managed all of that for you. Serverless is the same thing. Like, yes, it's still somebody else's server, but you no longer have to think about how do requests get in? How are we managing the API gateway? How are we managing connection pooling or all these other things that happen when you start thinking about like networking at scale, right? There's so much stuff, load balancing and horizontal scaling and there's so many things that happen, right? And I honestly, I just said a bunch of words that I've heard networking techs use. I don't even know if all of them are relevant.
I'll throw
I
out
just
some
dropped
terms.
a course by Jason on Front End Masters about serverless functions in case anyone wants to learn even more.
I have a full day workshop on serverless front end masters that is it's super fun. You get to build I think this is the one that has the Corgi movie posters. You get to make some like good parodies of popular movies.
I don't want to give
Nice.
away any of the names because they're really funny. Anyways, definitely check it out. I I like the way you explained how serverless was kind of like they already had servers and they kind of had these leftovers. It's kind of like, hey, let's sell this bag of Oreos, and oh, you know what? Now let's sell Oreos ice cream with like the broken up pieces that didn't make it into the bag.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's what I like about it is that it's a way of reducing waste, and I think that that's really exciting for a lot of reasons. But I also think that I don't know that anybody really expected that serverless was going to gain the level of popularity that it has. But I do think that, you know, it's sort of like when you look at the way that cloud providers, I'm sure when AWS first came out, I remember conversations were like, we'll never see big companies move to the cloud. You know what I mean? Like we all thought that, well, now IBM will always have like its own server closet. It'll never move to. Well, now IBM is a cloud, right? They like everybody has gone to the cloud. You almost never hear of like fully on-prem solutions anymore, except for the biggest companies. And I think that serverless is one of those things that it's starting to get that level of adoption where, you know, you see serverless in use all over the place. It's not a complete solution. You know, it's the same reason that you don't throw React at every front end because it's not the right tool for the job. You don't throw serverless at every back end because it's not the right tool for the job. But it is a great tool for a lot of the types of jobs that we're doing every single day that don't require big, heavy servers. And we're seeing serverless get adoption for that.
Yeah. No, I definitely like what you said before about how, like, at least from a front end dev or folks doing full stacky things, it's like literally anybody can be an indie hacker and build anything these days, you know? Because like I remember like back in the day, like you literally had I was working at this e-commerce company and I had to speak to the guy in Texas. I logged into the VM and something happened and basically I needed him to restart the server, like literally restart the server, you know? So so I think it's pretty amazing that all this stuff's in the cloud and literally it makes it accessible to so many more people to do things too. So it's no, it's
I mean,
it's
within
really
the
cool.
span of my career, I've got memories of coworkers who like in previous jobs, they'd had to drive out to the data center and like sleep on the floor so that they could restart servers during a big launch in case anything went wrong. Like
Yeah.
it's really wild how much the industry has transformed. And I think, you know, I don't want to overblow anything, but I really do feel like there's a shift happening in the way that we build sites where we're realizing what the difference is between like necessary complexity and unnecessary complexity. And I think that
Yeah.
when we look at stuff like building servers, in a lot of cases, setting up all the boilerplate to run a server it's just unnecessary complexity for what you're going to get out the other end.
Yeah.
Or as I joke about it, it's voluntary suffering. You're basically saying like I want to add another reason to be on PagerDuty to my list.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
start building your own server, when you roll your own clever solution, you're basically saying, hey, I would like to be on the hook for maintaining this, please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would like to not be on pager duty, please.
Exactly, right? Well, and that's the thing, right? And that's why I like these solutions, because the parts that are scary are, you know, it's almost, when I see a front end go down, the front end almost never goes down because somebody wrote bad HTML. Like sometimes you ship a JavaScript error and that can actually take down the front end, but more
Yeah.
often than not, front ends go down because somebody accidentally did something wrong to the caching. Somebody didn't set up the load balancer properly and the site's going down because it got popular. You know, somebody did something that is costing you like thousands of dollars in bandwidth because they shipped
Yeah.
whatever thing inefficient. Like it's almost never the front end itself. It's always the infrastructure around the front end. And
Yeah.
so what I really like about this shift with Jamstack, with serverless, is that those things, those infrastructure problems are getting outsourced to companies that pay so much money to the best people in the world to manage it for us.
Yeah.
You know, we all know what Amazon salaries look like, and it's
Yeah.
because those people are
Yeah.
probably occasionally sleeping on the floor of the server,
Yeah. Yeah.
building problems, right?
Yeah, no, it's such a good point. One thing that like I never ever want to do in my life is have to manage data because like think about it, like when the internet started, okay, yeah, we got some websites out there, we got some databases, but like all everybody's information is compounding daily, like
Mhm.
photos, like any kind of information, and it's like, you know, I just don't want that stress in my life of, oh yeah, Nick lost all the Dead Sea Scrolls that were, you know, up in the cloud there. Way to go, Nick. You know, so
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and you think about it too, just like how you know it's the the challenge that happens as you get successful too. When you roll something in house, it works for a while, and then you
yeah,
hit scale. And like we're watching Notion go through this pain right now with like they're seeing like these big slowdowns, and a lot of it's due to choices they made that worked great early on, and then they hit scale, and now they've had to like rewrite everything because
yeah,
they made choices that don't scale. So for me, I'm like, can I have like a database expert who works on companies much larger than mine
yeah,
tell me the way that this database should scale so that I literally never have to think about it?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Just let me build the schema and let me do my work.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Well, do you two want to set up kind of what you are going to? So we're going to keep talking about serverless, but they're also going to be working on something because I think that
Yes.
helps everyone, right? When you're actually kind of creating something while you're
Yeah,
talking about it. So Nick, I don't know if you want to, or Jason can just set up kind of what you all are going to be doing, and I can drop some links for people that are helpful that you gave me, and what you're going to be working on.
cool. Did you want me to kind of start, or you want to mention, or?
Yeah, no, jump in.
Go
Yeah.
for it, Nick.
So, for those who aren't aware, I don't know if it's on all the forum instances, like Code Newbies and stuff, but on dev.to, there's an API that you can hit, and you can actually query and get all your articles, other people's articles. There's a ton of stuff in the API. Christina's gonna link to the dev docs there, for that. Um, I actually use it, but there's also an integration with Dev for folks that don't know from Stackbit that allow like I use Dev as my CMS right now. I'm just kind of dog fooding it, but I thought it would be fun. Like we were trying to think of what are we gonna build today because I didn't want to grab anything that Jason had maybe already done. So I kind of clued in like, oh yeah, we got the dev.to API. So I thought it'd be kind of fun to hook into that, and it's kind of going under the hood of what StackBit's probably doing. So I thought it'd be fun to do that. I don't think it's up to you, but I don't think we need to necessarily use a framework like React or excuse me, or
Shouldn't
Vue or
need to.
whatever. We can go old school HTML and vanilla JS if you want.
Yeah, that totally works for me. I think let's get the API part set up, right? Let's get it reading in.
Okay.
And so I think the way that we can do it is do we need a token to get to the dev.to API?
There is a token that you can register for, but we don't need to do it for today. But it is something that's available if folks want to. But I can
Okay.
grab one if you want. This kind of ties into
Well,
what you were saying before about tokens and
right. So one of the big benefits of building with serverless is that we can make those privileged calls on behalf of our applications because we're able to protect tokens.
okay.
So we don't necessarily need to do it, but we can show how that would work.
Yeah, sure.
So we'll be able to kind of set up our own little mini API for our site, what we need. So I think maybe what we can do is make it so that you can search for a dev.to author
Yeah,
and list some of their posts, and so we can just kind of show how that works. We can build that little bit of functionality out.
yeah.
So
You can
there'll be a
grab me.
serverless function for that. And what's that?
I said you can grab me on dev. No, I was just
Ah,
joking.
okay.
Dev to
I'm just trying to remember where you
Um,
get the API key.
Well,
Go
and
to the
unless we're
docs I
going to make
just
a
linked
privileged
to.
call, we won't really need it. So I think
Yeah,
that's okay.
but it does.
But yeah.
Yeah, okay. And like you said too, so you can hide your environment variables because they're on the server. Other benefits of going serverless too is we avoid CORS issues, I imagine as well. That's
Hmm.
probably pretty handy too.
Yes.
Okay, cool. All right. I'm going to share my desktop. I am pretty sure I don't have anything incriminating on it, but we'll find out in a minute. All right.
Always my favorite time to find out is live.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, exactly. All right. Let me just, yeah, we got some inception going on here. Hold on a sec. All right. Okay, so I'm in VS Code. All right, let me share my screen now. You should see, do you see my VS Code, folks?
Right now it's small, but you have
Oh
like
yeah,
S and then
yeah,
your
yeah.
tiny VS Code. So
Yeah, yeah. Usually I make you show up big on the screen when I share the screen,
yeah,
Christina.
usually it's just the giant Christina, but
Yeah,
that's not
here
what
we
VS
go.
Code.
All right, okay, hold on a sec. There you go. Now you're big again. All right. Let me share this. This is the part where I need to get a stream deck at some point. Okay, and I'm
Yeah,
just gonna. Okay, do you see it now?
Yep.
Nice and big. Yeah, cool.
give it a second.
Yeah, I see it. Okay, cool. All right, so let me just cd to my dev directory. Whoops.
Baby VS Code. That's what someone said in the chat. That's what you were showing before. Little baby
Yeah, yeah.
VS Code.
Okay, so we've literally got nothing here now, Jason. So we're gonna start from scratch. So I guess first thing is just make a new folder, and then I'll init the Git repo, and then I'll
Yep.
initialize. I don't even need to do npm actually because we're not gonna be doing any. All right, let's do make dir.
We might
One.
need a little bit of npm
Okay,
just to make our lives easier.
cool. All right, so I'm just going to run npm init -y. So this will just install it with all the defaults. And I'm going to do a git init here. And we should have a repo. Cool. So if just going to open that folder now. Oops. Opened literally everything. Yeah. All right. Cool. All right. So we're pretty much blank slate here. We got a package.json file.
Okay. So do you have the Netlify CLI installed?
Yep. I'm just going to make sure I'm logged in.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
if you've never used the Netlify CLI, Actually, do you want to do a quick upgrade on this? Because there's some benefits that we'll get if we do that.
Okay. Oops. Is it just NTL?
Netlify-CLI.
I haven't actually upgraded a package in a while. Is it? Do you do update? I can't remember anymore.
Nope, this is right.
Yeah, yeah.
The
Okay.
command is actually right there as well.
Oh yeah, I should probably just let. You know, it's okay. It's live.
Nick, we always have something that like goes off. We actually haven't this time, so it's okay.
Don't
Have
jinx
some
it.
time to mess up.
So while we're waiting for this to install, I'll talk a little bit about what it does and why it's so useful. So there are a few things that we can do. First of all, once you're logged in like this, it's hooked up to your Netlify account. So you have the ability to, you know, find your sites and create new sites. So the other big thing that we're going to be able to do here is we're going to be able to run a local version of our site, including the serverless functions. And that's the part that's really beneficial here, is that we can test our serverless functions locally as if we were deployed.
Nice.
We also tested this yesterday. You can run Netlify dev with a live flag, and that'll actually set up a tunnel to your local machine so that you can share it with somebody to test a real URL on your live machine. So we just used that yesterday to test webhooks, and it was a game changer. So some really, really fun stuff there, really exciting things. But the other thing that's really nice, and the reason that I had you upgrade, is that we just started auto detecting functions. So we have a completely config-free way of getting started with your first serverless function. So let's go into your project and create a new folder called Netlify.
Yeah. All right. So just Netlify, not .netlify.
Not .netlify. This is a little confusing.
Okay.
We realized after we shipped it that we had created that confusing of a thing. And then inside of this, let's create one more folder called functions.
Okay. I'll go GUI on this one. Okay, cool.
And then inside of that, let's create our first serverless function. So we can call it hello.js or whatever we want.
Hello.js. Okay. And
okay.
Yeah.
So the way that a serverless function works. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I guess we need to export something here, or?
Yes. So the way that a serverless function works is that we need to export something called handler. So it's exports.handler. And this is the common JS way of doing a named export. And we're then going to send back a function. So we'll mark it as async so that we don't have to do any callbacks or anything like that. When you mark a function as async, it will use the promise-based return, which gets, exactly like that. So then to return from this, to send something back from our serverless function, we're going to return an object.
Okay.
And inside of the object, there are two required fields. Status code is camel case.
Okay. 200, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then a body of literally any string.
Okay, so pass anything. Hello. Greeting. Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Okay, so now that you've created that, go back in your terminal and run ntl space dev.
Okay. So ntl dev right now, what's that going to do for us? Okay, so.
So what we can see, if you scroll up a little bit, in the log output, it starts your server. It starts serving static files. We don't have any static files, so it just served an empty folder. But then we can also see that second to last log line, it says function server is listening. And what that means is that in addition to starting our static site, it also started the function server so that we can test our serverless functions. And then all of that, if we scroll down to the box that it output, is proxied behind localhost 8888. So if we go to the browser and open localhost 8888.
Okay, let's do that. Let me just drag in. All right. Localhost 8888.
And then do slash. Yeah, so we don't have a static site, so there's nothing there to find.
Okay.
But so to get to our functions, it'll be just like on Netlify. You'll do slash dot Netlify
Okay.
slash functions
Okay.
slash the name of the function. So hello.
Cool. Okay. Also, I have this browser extension that just prettifies the JSON. But okay, so I see we got
Nice.
our payload here coming back from the function that we just wrote. I'll
Yeah.
just go back.
Now go ahead and
into-
edit that function. Don't stop the server.
Yeah. Okay. My favorite, YOLO.
Okay. So
Okay.
save that. Refresh the page.
Nice.
So it kind of updates as you go. So it's a really nice development experience. You're able to kind of try this stuff out and make things happen. So the next thing that we can do is let's figure out how we can get some real data in here.
Mhm.
And the way that I would typically do this is I would install the node-fetch module, which will let us use the browser fetch API in our serverless functions.
Yeah. Cool. I'll just stop the server for a sec. Okay.
Yeah, and DTOT is talking about the Netlify dev with the live tunnel,
Okay.
which is so dang cool. Actually, if you want to try it, we can run one up right now,
Yeah,
and
for
people would
sure.
be able to. So yeah, go ahead and just start the server again, but this time do Netlify dev -- live.
Okay. All right, come DDoS me, folks. All right.
Oh wait, no site ID. Oh, okay. So before this will work, we have to create a site. So we can do
Okay.
NTL space init.
Yeah. And
So this will
when
walk you through creating a new.
Okay.
Oh, well, you got to deploy it to
to
GitHub.
Netlify. Or GitHub. Yeah, that's okay. Yes, and
Yeah,
create.
because the way that, well, we could do it manually, but it's going to be so much more fun if we do it to GitHub. So do you have the
Okay.
the GitHub CLI by chance?
Yes, I do.
Okay, let's do this whole thing from the command line.
Okay.
It's going to be great.
All right, here we go. And I think
Go,
Christina
Nick.
has a link for the GitHub CLI.
I can get that.
Yeah, I dropped her a few links before we started
Yep.
the stream. So, all right. So yeah, I love. I'm assuming you use the GitHub CLI pretty often there, Jason.
Oh, I live in it. I love it.
All right. So we're gonna do repo create. I'm assuming.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So just for the folks at home, I already did a git initialize, and we've got the repo name, which is the folder Fun with Jason. So that's going to be the name of the repo on my own GitHub. I'm going to skip the description for now. I'll put it public. Folks, you can check this out after the stream. If I haven't pushed everything, I'll push it once the stream's done. But all right. Yes, I want to continue. Yeah, I use this constantly for work because I'm reviewing PRs all the time from coworkers in the community. So like little GHCO and the PR number, it's like I don't know,
So
it just
good.
saves me. Yeah. So good.
So from here, let's go ahead and just publish this. Let's take it live so we can add all the files that we've got so far. Well, make sure you ignore the node modules and
Oh yeah.
things like that. You'll need to git ignore.
Yeah. Okay. There's a handy package called git ignore. So I'm going to do one for Node. That's just going to generate one for me.
Nice. I've never used that one. That's handy.
Yeah, it's super handy. I think Siren from Microsoft blogged about or posted it one day. Yeah, no, it's super handy. Okay, so all right, so I've got everything there. Let's just make sure. Git ignore, package lock, package JSON, hello. Okay, that's good.
That's what we want.
All right, I'm just using my git alias to add all the files. Then I'm going to do my other alias, which is git CI, so git committed, initial commit. All right, and now we're going to do, I can just push it, right?
Yeah, I usually for the first one git push -u origin main.
Okay, yeah. Okay. That's just my
Oh,
alias
nice.
here.
You've got all this. You've got all the aliases.
I've
I
got.
still type it out longhand like a joker.
Me too.
All right, so I'm just gonna double check here, but I'll go to my GitHub real quick just to see that the repo's there for the folks at home. Bum, bum, bum. Cool, so there we got it. Fun with Jason is up on GitHub, so I think we're in good shape to
Yeah,
get
now we
back.
can Netlify init.
Okay, NTL init. All right, so connect this to a new site, right?
I would create and configure a new one. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's my account. Cool. Yeah, I'll go with super. I'll just take the optional. I'll skip it for now.
Yeah. If you hit enter, it'll generate one for you.
All right, cool. So authorize your yes. Okay, give me 2 seconds here.
Yeah, that'll pop off the screen.
Yeah, for the folks that can't see, it's opening up, and of course it didn't open up in my default browser. Thank you. Okay, I don't know why it didn't do that. I toggle between browsers. It opened up in Chrome, but I've been using Edge lately. But
I've been using Edge too. I feel like I feel weird saying that, like going back to a Microsoft browser after all these years, but
yeah,
it really is good. It's so good.
it is. I like it. I also like to kind of just mix it up. Like I was using Firefox for a while before, just because like we do web dev. It's just kind of,
Mm-hmm.
keep you on your toes a bit because there are still some incompatibilities. But all right, failed constructor. I'm gonna just do it again here because I think I messed something up when it opened up the browser. Give me 2 seconds
Oh,
here.
okay.
I'm logged into GitHub now, so it should work. Authorize, yes. Okay, you're about. All right, logged in, perfect.
Hey, there it goes.
All right, cool. And from here,
So we don't have a build command yet, so you can just hit enter.
Yeah.
And we don't have anything to deploy at the public site yet, so we can just hit enter again.
Cool. And
Netlify functions is auto-filled.
Cool.
Okay, so now let's try that again. Netlify dev -- live.
Okay. And that previous process was pretty fast. The only reason why it took a little longer was because I messed up my GitHub login. That's my bad. That's on me. But
Okay, so
cool.
check this out. So now we have a live site. If you drop that in the chat, it's gonna work. You can actually, put this into. You can run the function. And so let's go ahead and drop that in here.
Yeah.
And make sure you keep that /.netlify functions hello.
Oh yeah. Whoops. That's my bad. I'll Netlify functions.
.netlify.
Oh yeah. Sorry. Cool. All right. I'll paste that in the chat so folks can see it live.
So now we can all go hit that. And when we do hit it, if you go change it now to whatever.
Yep. So let's do that. What up, peeps? All right.
And then once you save it, I'm going to refresh my page and I see your change immediately. So I'm we're now basically like, how cool is that?
Yeah, and that's super snappy and fast.
Mm-hmm. It feels really nice. Like it's a really nice experience. It's great for like team debugging sessions and things like that. What I really love it for is when you're working on webhooks. Because webhooks are, we won't really dig into webhooks today, but webhooks are a super powerful way to get systems to talk to each other. A lot of CMSs and software as a service platforms are going to have a way for you to register a webhook for when certain events happen. Like in Shopify, you can set up a webhook for when you sell something, or in Contentful, you can set up a webhook for when you save data. Most headless CMSs have a webhook for when you update a post. That webhook can be a serverless function, and you can use it to do things like kick off a new build of your Netlify site, or post something in Slack, or whatever you want to do. It's really, really powerful stuff. And when you're developing those, this approach lets you kind of test it locally without having to deploy it every time, which is a really, really nice flow. Cool. All that being said, now you are able to pull in your fetch, so we can get const fetch equals require node fetch.
It's a default export or named export?
It's the default export, yeah.
Okay, cool. Require. So used to doing import.
I know. We actually are working on a version of functions that uses ESBuild. It's supported now, but I haven't run through it to be confident in writing ESM style serverless functions yet. So
Yeah.
you can do it today, but I can't remember how.
Yeah, and side note, but I was reading this morning that there's native TypeScript support now as well for Netlify functions.
There is, yeah. That's another thing that we literally just shipped it like yesterday. So
Okay,
if
cool,
you
cool.
are a TypeScript user, there's a blog post. Let me see if I can find that. Let's see, it's in here somewhere.
Yeah, I forget where I retweeted it this morning, but
yeah, here's that TypeScript stuff. If you want to try TypeScript, you can now set it up and run your TypeScript right in Netlify functions. You don't have to do a compile step or anything. We'll take care of it for you.
yeah, it's
But
pretty neat.
okay, so now that we have fetch, we can load our data. So let's start by just loading your data here. So we can do const results equals await fetch and your URL.
Yeah. Cool. I'm just gonna test it with my name, my username for now.
And then because
actually,
it's the fetch API, we need to do a .then.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna do.
Actually, let's do this another way that I like, which is yeah, you get your response, and so then we can do if response. Do you want to do error handling or do you want to just power on ahead?
We can power on ahead, but
okay.
Why don't we get the API showing, and if we have time, we can pop in the error handling too.
Okay, cool. So let's do a const payload is going to be await response.json.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. I love
and
the
then
API.
we can just stringify that payload.
Cool. So in theory, this should be showing my results of my recent blog posts. Wow,
and if you do have this open in your browser, I just refreshed it. It's working.
That's pretty wild.
So this is magical, right? Like what a cool feeling to be able to just pull this in. And we've now built an API. So let's do one more step. Let's make this feel like an API. So let's open up, let's create a file called netlify.toml.
Okay, good old Toml, my good old friend. All right. Okay. Just one
and put it at
here.
the root of the repo.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Here we go.
Okay. So in double square brackets, double square boys, write redirects.
Okay. Is it in quotes or just I can't remember.
No, just regular.
Okay.
And then we're going to put the first argument is going to be from equals.
Yeah.
And then that'll be let's in quotes, let's do /API /hosts like
posts,
with a P.
Post, yeah. No, yeah. Okay, gotcha.
And then below that, do 2 equals and /.netlify /functions /hello, which we can rename this if we want to posts or something. And then underneath that, let's do status equals 200, no quotes.
Okay. Cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, if we save that, I think we might have to stop and restart because the redirects change, but let's try it first. So what should happen is we should be able now to go to /API /posts.
Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna have to stop and restart the server to get it to work.
Yeah, cool. No worries. I also wrote API posts instead, so
posts.
Yeah.
As a side note, while you're stopping, for those who haven't watched Jason's stream, that is where you get to learn words like curly boys and all that fun stuff. So definitely check it out.
Whoops, too many slashes. All right, cool. So we have
now we've made an API.
That's awesome, and I like the redirect because, like, you know, you don't really want to say .netlify/functions your thing. So it's pretty cool that you can give it like a more elegant name for the API.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, right. And so now that we've got that, let's take it a step further and let's go. Let's add support for a username. So the first argument to your event handler is going to be event.
Yeah.
And what this is going to include is it's going to include your path, your body, your query string, anything that was sent to the request.
Okay, cool.
So in our case, what I think we can do is why don't we just go ahead and parse the path? So what we can do is let's get out like const username.
Okay.
And let's make that event.path.replace.
Yeah.
I'm now doubting if it's path or path name. I guess we're gonna find out. And then you make your string /API/posts/
Okay. /API/posts. Okay.
with a slash.
Oh yeah. Okay, and we'll add
and
the
then
name
replace it with nothing.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
So the second argument to replace would be an empty string.
Yeah. Cool. So I imagine our API call is going to have the username at the end.
Yeah. So let's see. How do we want to do this? Let's add an or statement or like nullish coalescing or something that will default to your username so that we don't get explosions. Like this is not a production API. This is a demo API.
Yeah. If you want everything to be my posts in production, go for it. There we go.
Okay.
Cool.
And then in the response, we can, just make sure that we
use a template literal, template string. I think they mean the same thing. I always forget. Username.
So I prefer this. This is always nice.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay.
So theoretically speaking, once we save this, then what you should be able to do is refresh the page. Let's make sure that we didn't just break it. It should default to your stuff. Okay. So it broke. What broke?
Okay. Yeah. So in terms of server logs, I imagine we have some down here.
Should give us something, but it didn't. So what went wrong? Actually, it might have just returned an empty. Oh, I wonder if we just did a search for like an empty string on the dev.to API.
Okay.
Let's check. Let's log what the username is and see.
Okay. Can I just do a console log and it'll pop into that log?
Yeah,
down there?
do like a console.dir of event.
Okay. Oh, just to make sure we got the path name or whatever it's called.
Yeah, it might be path name and not path. I might have screwed that up.
Cool. I'll refresh this. Okay. So
in here, there toward the top, I think there should be
it's path. It's missing.
Okay, so it is path.
Okay, so I think
so
it's
let's
our
log.
nullish.
Yeah, let's log username and see if we actually got a username back, because it should be coming. It should be defaulting, but
yeah,
our replace might have broken that.
Cool. And I'll put this after, because otherwise don't want to end up in the temporal dead zone. Okay. Event path replace API. Oh, okay, cool. Let's see what that gives us. Okay, let's pop.
Okay, so the log should be down at the bottom.
It
gave us API post. Did we? Oh, I know what it is. It's because our we included a trailing slash. So we'll either need to. Okay, let's do this. What's the right way to do this? Because we will end up with a slash at the beginning.
Yeah.
So we can make it into an actual regex.
Yeah. Can do that, I guess. Cool.
Your problem is regex, or you have a problem, you add regex. Now you have two problems, right?
Yeah. So so this might be hard for people to read. I gotta escape the slashes, and I'm making the last slash optional, and then we should be good. Booyah!
There it is.
Right.
Okay,
nice.
Perfect.
Okay.
So now we have to update our redirect. So let's go
Okay.
back into that netlify.toml.
Okay.
And at the end of post, add /star.
Okay.
And let's give that a try.
Okay. So just to, I might be saying the obvious, but we're doing a wildcard here on the rewrite. So anything after post is what's going to get passed in as the username.
Yes, I am reasonably confident that that will also match empty, but we might need 2 rules, one for no trailing slash.
Okay.
Okay, so it still did what we expected. So now try somebody else's dev.to username. Mine's Jay Lengstorf if you want to try that.
Ooh, nice. Lengstorf on the dev community. Boom. All right. Cool. All right. Does anybody want to learn about sending GraphQL queries? Jason's got your back. Cool.
Look at it go, y'all. We just built ourselves an API.
Nice.
Yeah, I just want to step back a sec and say, like, I know we were kind of talking through it, but this is like a pretty fast return on dev. Like, it's like
Yeah.
we banged this out pretty quickly.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
mean, even with the screwing around, we did this in 15, 20 minutes.
yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think if that. Yep.
Yeah.
I,
But so that is kind of how, that's how we can make that work. And then if you want to take it live, this is even more fun. Are you logged
Okay.
into Netlify in this browser? Do you want to open up like app.netlify.com? You can also run NTL open to do it.
Yeah, I am logged in, but yeah.
Okay. So let's open up the pensive site there at the top.
Should have been
It's a
ramen.
ramen.
Now I want to eat noodles even though it's not spelled correctly.
Okay, so go over to your deploys tab.
Yeah.
And we can see that we've just got the one right now. So let's commit this and push it.
Okay. Cool. Let me just go over here. GCI created posts API. All right. Now, when I push this, the GitHub repo is tied to my application on Netlify, which should trigger a build, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So
Cool.
if you refresh the page, you'll see it immediately. Otherwise, it'll pull here in a couple of seconds.
Cool.
And so now the site is automatically rebuilding, which means that here in a few seconds, it'll be live. And that means that we can then go hit this, the public URL.
Okay.
There we go. Screaming on through, and it's live. Okay,
Cool.
so so now if we go back and hit that, we can now go to /API/posts.
Cool. Storf. Oh, whoops! Did I do something wrong?
Whoa, what did we lose here? Unexpected token.
Is it posts or
You know what
post?
it is?
Oh no.
We didn't set our node version, so I think we need to. I think nullish coalescing. We have to update the node version. So an easy fix for that will be to just use or instead of nullish coalescing.
Yeah, cool. No problemo. You are nice nullish coalescing, but not this afternoon. All right.
Yeah, I think we would need to set it to use node 14, which I think we just need an NVMRC for that. I haven't tested it with functions recently, so I know will work.
Yeah.
But here's the part that's exciting, right? Is that it's gonna build really fast. It should rebuild even faster this time because we'll have a cache. So each of those things will happen. In a few seconds we'll be live.
All right. Cool. All right, we're done. Cool.
Boom, done. So now if we refresh,
nice.
There's our stuff.
We're live.
So this is kind of the power of that whole model. Now, are we out of time, or do you want to try one more thing?
No, if you have time, and we still have time anyway. But as long as you still have time too, Jason, we're good.
Okay, I have one more thing that I want to do. I want to make this into an on-demand builder so that we cache the response.
Okay.
So let's go back to the repo.
Yeah.
And do npm install @netlify /functions.
Okay. So
Okay.
what's
And
this
then,
package give us?
so this is it's a suite of utilities. The main one that we're looking for here is the builder. So get the builder named export out of Netlify functions.
Thank you, tab 9.
And then
Yes.
probably the easiest thing to do is to change exports.handler to like const handler.
Okay. And we'll just export the default after, I guess.
Yeah, so we'll do exports.handler at the bottom, and it'll be builder wrapped around handler.
Okay.
Not default, exports.handler.
Oh, okay.
Equals builder,
builder.
and then pass our handler function to it as an argument.
Okay, and that was, it was just called handler, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we just called it handler.
Okay, so when we wrap this is giving new functionality to our handler. I'm assuming kind of like a high order component pattern.
So it tells Netlify to make this into, it tells it to use the distributed persistent rendering pattern.
Okay, cool.
So let's test this to make sure that I got the export names right and everything. This is all brand new, so.
You saw it here first, maybe. I don't know. Maybe it's been shown elsewhere, but.
This is definitely the first live demo, yeah.
Okay, so I'm running NTL dev live again.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool.
But you don't have to do live, but yeah, any of the Netlify dev.
Yeah, okay, cool. All right, we're running server now, ready, sure. All right, cool, and we're gonna go back to /API/posts, and just look up a username again, or?
Yeah, any username.
Okay.
Okay, that did what we wanted. Let's deploy that.
Okay. Whoops, wrong place. Okay, no. Something changed in my VS Code. I usually do command backslash, and it opens up another browser terminal, but something changed. Anyways, all right, GCI using the on-demand builder. Cool, let's push that. Okay. It'll probably be deployed before I get to the tab. All right, so we're building again.
Yep.
Okay, close that.
And so what we'll see in here as we dig around is what I'm looking for is the response time, how long it takes to get back to us.
Okay.
And so I just hit the live site. So go ahead and refresh that API/posts and look at your network timing.
Okay, cool. Just gonna zoom this in for folks. Okay, let's do this again. Okay, I don't have any filters on. Cool. All right, so we want to see here. Oh, whoops. All right.
Yeah, so we can just see
milliseconds.
Yeah. So run it again.
Okay.
Right, 25 milliseconds. All right, put a different username in there.
Okay.
One that we haven't tried yet.
You can do CM Gorton if you want.
All right. We're giving a shout out to some content creation from.
Maybe that's not it. Okay, do Ben's. Mine might be Coffee Craft Code, which is a little bit longer.
Cool. All right, so Ben's there.
Okay, so let's look at Ben's response. It's a little lower down there.
Oh yeah, sorry. Ben,
okay, it's currently behind our. How many was it?
474 milliseconds.
Okay, reload.
Okay.
25.
Wait,
it's 25.
Yeah.
Second time.
Yeah.
Down.
Yeah.
Yep, 25.
Yep. Thanks. All right, so that's pretty significant difference.
Right, so it's incredibly cool, and what this also means is the function only ran the first time. So it took a half second the first time. The second time, the function didn't run at all. It just returned that cached response. So this is a really, really powerful model that is going to give you a lot of flexibility. It means you're not going to rate limit against an API. Like if somebody hits your API over and over and over again, they'll only hit the API itself once. They would have to like change their URLs to get additional API hits, which like,
Okay.
people can do that. People are jerks. And if they want to try that, they will. But in general, it gives you a huge amount of flexibility and power here. So this is something, you just did this. We didn't have to put you on any betas. It's not behind feature flags. You can just do it today. And it's starting to roll out in other platforms. I know 11D is rolling out some kind of experimental support for this baked right into the framework. We've got it in the Essential Next.js plugin behind a feature flag if you want to try that. It's coming out in like Nuxt has Nitro coming out, which is going to have support for this. Really cool stuff coming out that hopefully most of you will never even have to use this consciously. It'll just happen in the background.
Okay, I see what you mean. Yeah. Okay, gotcha. So it'll just be baked in.
Yeah, your stuff will just automatically get faster. It's going to be magical.
Okay. Well, I gotta say, this is all really cool. We don't swear on our stream normally, but that's pretty cool shit. Like,
Yeah.
I am happy to elicit some unusual swears.
Only when Ben's on here, then there's the swearing.
yeah. Ben dropped an F-bomb at one point, but
Oh
good,
no.
good. In a good way. But anyways, context matters, people. Cool.
Yeah, so I
Well,
mean, but this is what I think is so exciting about this approach, right? Is like we were just able to build out a whole API. We've got an actual caching strategy in place. We've got, and like when we redeploy, we'll invalidate these caches and we'll get, so when you like have new data, if your webhook tells your Netlify site to rebuild, you now have that, that data will all revalidate. And so you'll get the latest version. You don't have to mess around with figuring out how to clear caches or making sure that things don't get out of sync. We're just handling that for you in the background. And it's because we've removed these layers and gone down to, subtracting things for simplicity instead of trying to add stuff for more control.
And for
I like
me,
that
as someone
philosophy.
who's super front end. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. You can answer.
Sorry, I was just going to answer the question. Pandemic is asking, can you configure the cache rules? No, and that's by design, because when you start having different caching rules for different parts of your site, that's how you get into these caching traps where part of your site is pulling up an old version of something, and then the new version gets twisted weird and it's got like half matching content. So the way that you would clear your cache if you wanted to is you would just push a new deploy of the site. We're talking about ways to make that slightly more configurable, but it's never going to be like a cache control where you would set like a TTL or something like that, because what we're finding is that those are like those great power brings great responsibility kind of controls.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
The architect gets it right, and then like the rest of the team doesn't really get training. There's not documentation. And so you find that everybody just starts invalidating everything every time, and suddenly you're spending thousands of dollars on your CDN, despite the fact that it's supposed to be caching those requests. So this is one of those like where freedom through boundaries is kind of what we're looking for, right?
Cool. All right. Well, I think that's a good place to stop, but I just kind of want to recap what we did and fill in the holes if I have any holes in what I'm going to explain here, Jason. But so we went from, well, we obviously talked about Jamstack and serverless, but we went from literally empty folder, used the the Netlify CLI. We added a functions folder. We saw we were able to like within like a minute or two have like an API call just giving us a funny little greeting. Then we hooked up the call to the API for dev.to. We saw we were getting results already. Then we did some minor customization by providing the username, and we were able to, using the redirect rules with the wildcard, we were able to get like just anybody's posts or top 7, or I forget how many we're showing. But and then we were able to do we wrapped it with the builder, which is the newer stuff from the Netlify functions toolkit, I guess, or whatever. And that gave us some caching out of the box. And we saw, like, in the case of like Ben's request, it went from like almost 500 milliseconds to like 25, which is like a pretty huge gain. So yeah, I gotta say, this is all just fun, cool stuff, and I gotta start doing some more of this. I'm learning Rust, but I
Yeah.
gotta do this too. So
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
I mean,
well,
this is like, I find that it's such an exciting space to be in right now because, like, Christina, I cut you off earlier when you were going to talk about this. So I'm going to shut up and let you finish your thought.
yeah, as someone who's like super, super front end, I feel like I am. Like I'm very much like a front end person. Just watching you all do that is super approachable to me. Like this, what you all were doing, I was like, I could do that. Like that's not something that's like super intimidating to me, which I think is awesome. So yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
That's my whole goal, right? Is like,
Yeah.
I just want to see front end developers feel
Yeah.
like they can do anything. And
Mhm.
this, like, if becoming good at building front ends is like the way you get into the industry, serverless is the way that you get, like, it's your cape. Like, it's what's going to
Yeah.
get you to the next level. It's going to make you
Yeah.
into a really stellar contributor because it takes all the chains off. You can do anything now. You can build
Yeah.
server stuff. You can build APIs, and you don't have to learn all the inner workings of Node or deployments or Docker or
Mhm.
Kubernetes or scaling or any of those things that start to get really, really, really challenging when you dig into backend. It's like,
Yeah.
no, let's just write some logic and ship that thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely.
Focus on the actual problem or idea you're trying to do instead. No, that
Exactly.
is super cool. Well, we're pretty much at 2:30, so I just want to say, like, had an awesome time, Jason. Thanks so much for coming on. I know you got
Mhm.
your finger in so many pies with streaming, work, all that stuff. So really appreciate you being able to take the time to come hang out with us today.
Yeah, of
Um,
course. Well, I mean, I love pie, so I'm happy to be here.
cool.
Um,
All right.
we also didn't get to talk about it at all, but I did just drop a link, and I'll drop more links in a minute. But the Netlify does have Jamstack Explorers,
Oh
which
yeah, we
is
forgot
like
to tackle
teaching you
it.
Totally.
about Jamstack. So I'm plugging that right now. If you want to learn more about the Jamstack, they do have Jamstack Explorers. It's an awesome platform to go on, and you can learn more about all kinds of things with the Jamstack. So
Thank you
Cool.
for
plugging that.
remembering to do that. I was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah,
we were like, stated goal today, talk about explorers.
all
It's
right.
cool.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're gonna cut out. Thanks everybody for popping in on the stream, and we'll see you next week. Jay Thompson's gonna be joining us again. He noticed we had a sloth as a mascot, and he wants to animate it. So we're gonna be working on some overlays.
Oh.
So I'm assuming we're gonna have some very
Jay and I get to
mobile.
geek out on Green Sock again. That's basically
Yeah.
what that stream's gonna be.
Cool. All right. Take care, everybody. Bye.
Thanks, y'all.